Hello to all of you and welcome back to the Music Roundup. This week we're going to mark St. Peter's Day because that falls on the 29th of June, so this coming Sunday is about the closest to that date that we can make. St. Peter's Day marks St. Peter, one of the disciples who founded the church in Rome and holds the keys to the gates of heaven. And his name is a pun on the word for a rock, which is a Petra. Now, just before we get on to the music, it's been a great week for music at St Saviour's Pimlico, curiously, because you might think, well, what's going on? Well, we got all the 4 choral scholars back and made a recording on Tuesday, and soon enough you will see the result of that. We made a wonderful video. Matt Norris, the tenor, is a fantastic sound engineer who brought all of his kit along, and he's going to be editing it. And that video is going to form part of a celebration of our dedication festival on the 12th of July and also be used for fundraising purposes. I'm fundraising currently for next year's choir. Usually I would apply to various musical trusts and charities for this, but this year the ones that I've applied to have more or less all replied saying that they're so inundated because of the state of music and the lack of support for music in the current situation, which is perfectly understandable. They can't answer our applications. So I'm looking a bit more to private funding. And there's a scheme called the Friends of Music at St Saviour's, which is very new. It's being set up at the moment, and I'm very grateful to Lorne Roper-Coulbeck, who's decided to join as a friend this week and made her donation. It's for minimum donations of £100, but larger donations also very welcome, as everything will go towards supporting the music at the church in the coming year. And of course you might feel that it's a luxury to be supporting music, and there's so many worthy causes at the moment, but there is now a more charitable side to it, because musicians are seriously struggling and impoverished at this time, and any paid work that comes their way is going to be like gold dust. So the more we can fund the arts and show a shared appreciation of the value of the arts, and in this case music, the better that will be for the continuation of something that is one of this country's great strengths. On to the music for St Peter's Day. Well, it's actually not a particularly well served day of the church year, musically speaking, and it's not particularly obvious what comes to mind for St Peter, but there's one little motet by Duruflé, who are featured in the past, and we've sung one of his other motets, Ubi Caritas, at the church. He wrote a set of 4 motets based on Gregorian chant, that's to say plain song. So single line melodies chanted, an extremely ancient part of music, and a very important part of music in the Catholic Church. And Duruflé, for this particular recording, which I've taken from St John's, Cambridge, they actually get a treble to sing the few notes that the piece is based on. So taken from that plain song chant, Tu es Petrus, and the words are Tu es Petrus et super hanc Petro edificabo ecclesiam meum. You are Peter, and upon this rock, you just have to imagine that rock sounds like Peter, to appreciate the pun, like Pierre in French. And upon this rock I will build my church. And that's it. And it's very short, and the anthem is extremely short. It's an introit, really. It's less than a minute long. Possibly the shortest piece in the standard repertoire. Now, Gregorian chant themes tie into the next piece I'm going to feature. That's all I can say about the Duruflé, except it's from 1960. Duruflé was an assistant to Vienne at Notre Dame in Paris, and then he took on his own church job at Saint-Étienne-du-Mont, which is a church next to the Panthéon in Paris. A smaller church, but it's now known, especially to musicians, as Duruflé's church. Now, Britain's Hymn to St Peter is a piece I didn't previously know. It just was part of what I found when I was looking up anthems for St Peter for this video. But I think I'd like to do it next year for St Peter's Day, definitely. I think it's quite a nice little discovery. And Britain also takes plain song for this. It's different plain song from the Duruflé. This is the gradual, which is a separate part of the service. So there's several different plain song lines written for each particular service. So there's no reason why this should be the same as what Duruflé picked. And the words begin, "Thou shalt make them princes over all the earth, they shall remember thy name, O Lord." And then, a little over halfway through, Britten brings in this treble solo that sings the plain song with the Latin words. And actually, from the beginning of the piece, you'll hear the plain song line in the organ and in the choir, and then it becomes more subtly woven in a way that you probably won't hear, but by looking at the score, you'd be able to observe the ways in which Britten uses the music of the plain song to produce a modern anthem. And this was written for the Church of St. Peter Mancroft, which is a very sizable church in Norwich. East Anglia being, of course, the home of Britten, he settled in Aldborough in Suffolk, which I think was where he was born as well, and founded the Aldborough Festival there. I know that's not particularly close to Norwich, but at least it's an East Anglian thing, and so I can take pride in that as someone with East Anglian blood. Then, a piece that's not specifically about St. Peter, but is an extract of a larger piece that, in this particular moment, focuses on St. Peter. Now that's a very round-robin way of describing one of the most sublime pieces in the whole world of music, and that is the St. Matthew Passion by Bach, of which one of the most famously beautiful extracts is Erbarme dich, which is an aria for alto. This particular recording I've chosen is sung by a countertenor, Andreas Scholl, who's one of the leading countertenors in the world in the present day. And this is the moment when Peter has been asked several times, almost harassed, by people who recognise him as a follower of Jesus, and he denies it for his own safety. And then, after denying it 3 times, he remembers what Jesus said, prophesying exactly that. He said, "Oh, only today or only tomorrow you will deny me 3 times." And he doesn't understand how that could possibly happen, and then suddenly it's all just happened. And there's this amazing line in the German recitative, which is a sort of musical version of speech in a larger piece, where the German is "und ging heraus und weinete bitterlich," which means when he realised it, he went outside and he wept bitterly. You could hear that in the German, weinete bitterlich. And that's a rare moment in the recitative of the Bach, where the sound isn't so mapped onto speech at all. The word weinete is carried over this long melismatic line, and then bitterlich is said with this great sense of anguish. And so the aria that follows is a moment of incredible beauty, but the recitative ending that comes before is worth listening to. It might be difficult to find if you're going through a 2.5 hour long video, but it's worth finding just to experience that. So Erbarme dich itself is about having mercy, so it's an aria about redemption, and it's got this beautiful violin solo which sort of decorates the line of the voice part. I don't want to try and spoil it by saying too much more about it, but this is the Matthew Passion by Bach. Should need no introduction, but this particular aria for many people is the highlight when they perform it or when they go and listen to it in a concert. Then finally, there's one piece of organ music as a little imaginary voluntary that's relevant to St. Peter, and that's by Henri Moulet, who was a lesser known composer of the French organ tradition. He wrote a set of 10 esquisses byzantines. Not entirely sure what that means, but 10 pieces for organ, well, Byzantine little exquisite pieces. I can't translate it any better than that, and that might not be correct. But this particular one is called Tu es Petra, and it's about St. Peter as well. It's traditionally played on St. Peter's Day. And the set was written between 1914 and 1919, so you can hear a bit of wartime sound and resolution to it, perhaps. So let me know what you think about these particular pieces that relate to St. Peter's Day, and please keep in touch. And if you'd like to become a friend of Music of St. Saviour's, then contact me and I will give you more information. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of the weekend and the heatwave.